The Edit Argus Fealta to Folklore and Superstition, where we tell folk tales, legends, ghost stories, and monster myths from around the world. I'm your host, Cassie, also known as the co-host of Mythillogical, and today we are heading to Ireland to tell a legend that spans the time of the Celtic gods through to the Christian era, the story of the Children of Lir. The first part of this story is set in the time of the Tuatha Dé Danann, or the folk of the goddess Danu. This was the penultimate tribe of the succession of peoples who, according to legend, settled in Ireland, being succeeded by the ancestors of the modern Irish, and are also known as the Tuatha Dé, or the tribe of the gods. It is generally accepted that the Tuatha Dé Danann's name means their rulers were the children of a goddess named Danu, or Anu, although her name is not mentioned elsewhere in the mythological cycle, the group of Irish poems and legends which tell of the Tuatha Dé and their predecessors. The titular Lir of the story and his contemporaries are of the third generation of the Tuatha Dé, and the final generation to have ruled Ireland before the coming of the ancestors of the modern Irish. Our story begins with the defeat of the Tuatha Dé at Towtu, now Towton or Towtown, in modern County Meath. Here, the Milesians, the ancestors of the modern Irish, defeated the Tuatha Dé and laid out terms of their surrender. The Milesians would be granted the surface of Erin, or Ireland, to rule, while the Tuatha Dé would be granted dominion of the underworld, which would become known as Tir na Nog. The Tuatha Dé had previously divided Erin into 5 provinces, and so divided themselves into 5 tribes. However, it was felt that as they established their new underground realm, they should unite under a single ruler. The 5 provinces were ruled by 5 chiefs: Bovderg, Ilbroch, Lir, Mither, and Angus Og. Bovderg and Angus Og were the sons of the Dagda, one of the kings who had led the Tuatha Dé in their previous war with the Fomorians, and considered the greatest of the gods, and so, as his successors, they were seen as the best candidates by the other nobles. Angus Og preferred to remain as he was, not seeking power over all his people, and so the nobles chose to grant leadership to Bovderg, the eldest of the Dagda's sons. Lir, however, was displeased with this decision, believing he ought to have been named king, and stormed out of the council in anger. Despite his dissent, Bovderg's appointment as king stood, for the remaining 3 chiefs voiced their support. The other 3 petitioned the king's permission to hunt down Lir, burn his home, and take his possessions as punishment for his insubordination, but Bovderg was wiser than they, and told them he was no less king over the Tuatha Dé because Lir would not submit, and punishing Lir would waste lives as Lir defended himself and his home. Lir remained isolated from the other Tuatha Dé for quite some time, until his wife took ill. After battling with her sickness for 3 nights, she passed away, and Lir fell into a depression. News spread of Lir's loss, and Bovderg offered Lir a place among the Tuatha Dé again. If Lir would accept Bovderg's rule, Bovderg would grant him the hand of one of his 3 foster daughters as his wife, to seal their alliance. He travelled to Loch Dergat, home and ruling seat of Bovderg, and was welcomed with open arms by the other Tuatha Dé, who celebrated his return to the fold. The 3 foster daughters, Eve, Aoife, and Ilva, daughters of Olil Aaron, were presented before Lir for him to choose. He said he could not choose between them, and so should marry the eldest if she were willing. Bovderg said that Eve was the eldest, and asked if she would marry Lir. She accepted, and the Tuatha Dé held a great wedding feast that night for Lir. They stayed in Bovderg's home for 2 weeks before returning to Lir's home, where they celebrated further with his people. In time, Eve became pregnant and bore twins, a daughter, Fionnuala, and a son, Eve. Soon after, she became pregnant again and had another set of twins, 2 sons, Ficra and Con. However, Eve died in childbirth, and Lir fell into another deep grief, with only the love of his 4 children keeping him from joining her in death. The news reached the Sidhe of Bovderg, and his people fell into grief. Bovderg said that though they must grieve their daughter, and for Lir's sadness, they must not risk his friendship, and so would offer the second daughter, Aoife, to him as wife. Aoife did love Lir and her sister's children in the beginning, but as they grew, and she saw how much Lir and the other Tuatha doted on them, jealousy and resentment began to fester. As her hatred grew, she resolved to kill the children so as to have the love of Lir all for herself. For more than half a year, she feigned illness, remaining isolated. Then, as she faked her recovery, she tricked the children into joining her in her chariot on a visit to Bovderg. They set out from Shifinakith, Lir's home, and when they had travelled some distance, she had ordered her servants to kill the children whom she said had stolen the love of Lir from her, promising them every reward in the world. But her servants refused to do such an evil deed, and so Aoife drew her own sword to kill them herself. However, the last vestiges of love for her sister stayed her hand, and instead she drove the chariot to Loch Devrach. There, she ordered the children to bathe in the loch. As soon as they entered the water, she used druidic magics to curse them, turning them into 4 beautiful white swans. 4 children of Lir, furious with their fate, turned to Aoife and said, "Evil is the deed which thou hast done, O Aoife, and moreover an ill act of friendship it is for thee to ruin us without cause, and it shall be manifestly avenged upon thee, and thou shalt fall in revenge for it, for the power for our destruction is not greater than the druidism of our friends to avenge it upon thee. Therefore, assign us some period and termination to the ruin which thou hast brought upon us." Aoife's malice was not lessened by this request, and she declared their fate would be even worse for it, for with the time limit on the curse, no power would be able to restore them until it runs out. She declared that the curse shall not be lifted until they have spent 300 years on Loch Devrach, 300 years on the seas of Sruthnamala, the North Channel between Ireland and Scotland, and 300 years on the cliffs of Erosdomnan and Innisglara, on the west coast of Ireland. After pronouncing this fate on the children, she finally found an ounce of pity for them, and granted them one small kindness, that they may retain their human speech, their dignity and intelligence, and they would be able to sing music the like of which could not be heard anywhere else on earth, and that they would not be distressed by being in the shape of birds. Finally, she spoke in verse to fully tell their fate. "Depart from me, O children of Lir, ye with the white faces, with the stammering Gaelic. It is a great disgrace to soft youths to be driven by the rough wind. 900 years for you upon the tide. It was I that sent ye through treachery, until ye shall be upon Innisglara, upon the northwest side of Red Erin. Advance ye out upon the Mala, until Lagnan and Deoch are united. It is a long time for one to be in pain. Lir's heart is a husk of gore. Through many a victorious throw he cast. Sickness to me is the groan of the active champion, though it is I that have deserved his anger." With this, Aoife spurred her horses on, and departed for the She of Bovderg, and was welcomed. Bovderg wondered, though, why she had not brought the children he loved so much with her. His suspicions were only strengthened when she claimed that Lir did not trust to send his children to Bovderg, for fear that he would take them hostage. He sent messengers to Lir to ask if this was true, and, learning the children had not arrived at Bovderg's home with Aoife, and the lie that she had told, Lir knew that they had met with a terrible fate at Aoife's hand. Lir prepared his chariot and his men to accompany him, and set out on the route Aoife had taken to learn what had happened to his children. As his troop passed Loch Devrach, Fionnuala saw them coming, and sang, "Welcome to the cavalcade of steeds, which I see hard by Loch Devrach, a company indeed, powerful and mysterious, seeking us, following after us. Let us move to the shore, O Eith, O Ficra, O comely Con. No host under heaven can those horsemen be, but only Lir and his household." Hearing Fionnuala's voice, Lir came to the shore, and seeing the birds, asked how they had human voices. Fionnuala told him that they were his children, and of the curse placed upon them by his wife. Lir and his people wept in grief for the children. Lir asked if the children wished to come ashore, for they had their senses and their memory, but Fionnuala explained that they were bound to Loch Devrach, but asked Lir to remain that night, and they would sing for him. Lir and his people spent the night on the shore, listening to the music of the children, and in the morning carried on to the She of Bovderg. Upon being told the truth of why the children had not arrived, Bovderg summoned Aoife, and told her that while the children will eventually gain relief and their souls would enter heaven, no such respite would be granted to Aoife. He then asked her what shape on earth she would think would be the worst to live in. She said that it would be a form of the demon of the air, and so Bovderg struck her with a druidic wand, transforming her into such a demon, and she flew away, remaining trapped in that form to this day. After Aoife had been punished, the remaining Tuatha set up encampment on the shores of Loch Dervrach. Men of the Milesian clans, hearing the music of the swans, came from every province of Erin to camp at the loch too, and the music of the Children of Lir was unparalleled by any musician before or since in Erin. Children would share stories with the visitors and learn from teachers within their encampments, and any who heard them sing would sleep soundly and easily each night, whatever ailed them. But time passed, and the 300-year limit on their time at Loch Dervrach drew near. Tuatha and the Children of Lir were grieved when the night came for them to leave for the Sruth na Mala, for in the cold seas they would have no company to make the years of the curse more bearable. Bidding farewell to their father, the Children of Lir took flight. After their departure, the men of Erin proclaimed that throughout Ireland no swan would ever be killed again. For many years, the Children of Lir suffered on the cold and rough seas. One night, a particularly harsh storm came upon them, and Fionnuala said that they must appoint a meeting place should they get separated. They agreed on the rock of Carrignaron. However, when the worst happened, and the storm scattered all four across the North Channel, none of them could find their bearings and return to the rock. Alone as the sea calmed around her, Fionnuala lamented, "In my condition it is woe to be alive. My wings have frozen to my sides. It is little that the furious wind has not shattered my heart and my body, separated from Eith." Alone, Fionnuala was able to slowly find her way to the Carrignaron, where she waited out the night, watching for any sign of Eith, Con, and Ficra. As dawn broke, she saw Con slowly drifting toward her, head hung low, drenched feathers, miserable but alive. Ficra soon followed, and though both were too cold, tired, and hurt to speak, Fionnuala took them under her wings to share warmth. Finally, Eith appeared on the horizon too, his head and feathers dry and unharmed, and Fionnuala embraced him with the others. Many more miserable nights of wind, rain, storms, snow, and frozen seas did they endure, surviving harsh winters that froze their skin to any rock they perched on, and froze their wings to their sides. As summer approached, and the sores from enduring the cold and ice healed, they began to travel to the shores of Erin and Alban each day, though each night they had to return further out to sea. One day they approached the mouth of the River Banner, and saw a troop of riders on white horses following the road to the southwest. They approached the shore to see if they could recognize them, and hailed the men. The leaders of their group were Eith and Fergus, the two sons of Bovderg. Their people had been seeking the Children of Lir for quite some time, and were overjoyed to finally encounter them. They gave the Children of Lir news of the Tuatha, that the whole tribe was now assembled together in Sheaf in Akith, the house of Lir, there consuming what they called the Feast of the Age, merrily, without fatigue or unease, except for the sadness of being separated from the Children of Lir. Fionnuala told them of their ordeals on the sea, and bid that the sons of Bovderg bring their tidings to Lir and to the Tuatha. When the troop returned to Sheath Lir, the Tuatha rejoiced to know that the Children of Lir were alive, though saddened by their suffering. Eventually, 300 years passed, and the time came for the Children of Lir to depart for Damnan. Living on the cliffs there, they met a young man of the descendants of Meal, the Gaelic people. He was drawn by their singing, and visited them daily. He came to love these birds as friends, and they loved him, and it was he who listened to their story and wrote the first record of their lives. Although they could now meet humans again, in living on the edge of the land, the elements were no less unpleasant to them, for they battled harsh winds to stay perched at the cliff face, and winters would again freeze their feet to the rock. One particularly bitter night, with the brothers wailing in pain from the ice, Fionnuala told them, "My brethren, believe ye the truly and splendid God of truth, who made heaven with its clouds, and earth with its fruits, and the sea with its wonders, and ye shall receive help and full relief from the Lord." Together they prayed and received God's protection, and from then on, no storm could harm them. The remaining 300 years finally passed, and Fionnuala said that it was finally time for them to return to Sheaf and Akeith, where Lear's household was. And so they took flight for what they hoped would be the last time. However, when they reached the Shee, they found it deserted and empty, an unroofed green mound, or rath. They passed the night there, singing a lament for their lost family, before setting out for the island of Innisglowra, resting on a lake that would become known as the Lake of the Birds. From there, they would go each day to the remotest parts of the country to feed, and pass each night on the lake. They remained here for quite some time, until the era of St. Patrick's coming to Erin, and the time of St. Machimoch, the founder of the Leithmore Monastery in County Tipperary. Machimoch came to Innisglowra, and the swans heard the ringing of his bell at the monastery. Fionnuala recognised the sound of the bell as the sound that shall free them from their suffering, according to the will of God, reciting, "Listen to the cleric's bell, elevate your wings and arise, give thanks to God for his coming, and be grateful for having heard him." When the bell fell silent, the swans sang in response, praising God with their song. Machimoch heard the music and prayed to God to reveal who had sang. God revealed to him the presence of the children of Lir, and he made haste to the lake. He brought the swans into his house, and, fetching an artificer, had him make chains of silver. He connected a chain between Eith and Fionnuala, and a chain between Con and Ficra. These chains, connecting the pairs of twins, soothed their pain, fatigue, and distress, and they remained in the monastery. The king of Connaught, Lagnan, and his wife, Deoch, Princess of Munster, received word of the swans which had been prophesied would be free of their curse in the time of his rule. Deoch demanded of Lagnan that he procure the birds for her. However, he refused to ask that of Machimoch. Deoch said if she did not obtain them, she would not spend one more night with him, and fled his house. And so Lagnan came to Innisglowra, and when Machimoch would not hand the birds over to him, he attempted to snatch them. As he laid his hand on the birds, their feathers fell off, and their forms changed into 3 ancient men and an equally ancient woman, barely skin and bones to them, dying. Fionnuala, her voice weak, asked, "Come and baptize us, O cleric, for our death is near, and it is certain that you do not think worse of parting with us than we do of parting with you. Therefore make our grave afterwards, and place Con at my right side, and Ficra at my left side, and Eith before my face." Machimoch did as he was asked, baptizing the children of Lir in their last moments, and burying them together. He raised a stone over their bodies, and inscribed their names in Ogham, and knew that their suffering was finally at an end, and their souls were at peace in heaven. And that is the fate of the Children of Lir. The Children of Lir is considered one of the 3 sorrowful tales of Erin by scholars from the 19th century onwards. The story is grouped with 2 others of a similar title, The Fate of the Children of Ishnoch, or The Tragic Fate of the Children of Ishnoch, the story of the Ulster cycle, which I cover in our Cuchulainn episode of Mythillogical, and The Fate of the Children of Tuireann, the story of the Tuatha Dé Danann's war with the Fomori, in which one of the Tuatha Dé's leaders, Lugh the Longhand, has the children of Tuireann undertake impossible tasks as punishment for their murder of Lugh's father. A common title in Irish legend is that of The Tragic Fate of, or The Tragic Death of, and it is not limited to these 3 sorrowful tales. These 3, however, are grouped together based on the assertion that they will be found together in 15th and 16th century manuscripts, and the suggestion from English folklorist Robin Flower that they were written by the same author in the 14th century. However, the earliest surviving manuscript containing all 3 tales in fact dates from the 18th century. The Children of Lir story appears in over 70 manuscripts, with the earliest dating to the 16th century, while the other 2 are thought to be much earlier than this. That the Children of Lir also has strongly Christian themes, not seen in the Children of Ishnoch or the Children of Tuireann, also marks it as a distinct story that is not likely to have shared origins with the others. Because of the focus on the Tuatha Dé Danann, this story is also sometimes considered part of the mythological cycle. However, the much later composition and the fact that its main focus is after the Tuatha Dé left the surface for the otherworld does set it apart. The language of the original is Early Modern Irish, rather than Old or Middle Irish, also distinguishing it from most of the mythological cycle. It has become a particularly famous part of Irish legend. In County Mayo, where the third location of the children's exile is found, there is now a sculpture depicting the children in their swan form. The story particularly resonated with the Irish diaspora of the 19th century. During the years of the Great Famine, many Irish were evicted from their homes by landlords and forced to emigrate to Britain, America, Canada, and Australia, with County Mayo being the area with the most evictions. The Children of Lir, forced to leave their families and spend centuries in exile in harsh conditions, were enduring a similar fate, which may have contributed to the story's popularity. Their salvation, in the form of the monk, also speaks to the strong Christian faith in Ireland and the Irish diaspora, and so there are strong historical reasons for the story's popularity. The narrative of enduring suffering to be rewarded for their faith in God, obviously a common Christian theme overall, is also particularly notable in the stories of the Irish saints, with Irish folklorist Cuivan Brotnack drawing parallels to the lives of several saints, including St. Catherine and St. Margaret. The story differs from folk tales which may, on the surface, appear to be of a similar type, where we see tropes of the wicked stepmother inflicting harm and exile on her stepchildren out of jealousy. The normal resolution of stories of this type is for the stepchild or stepchildren to have both gotten revenge on the stepmother and returned to their happy life, often gaining a reward that they otherwise would not have, such as wealth or a marriage partner. The children's reward here suggests that there is little influence from wicked stepmother tales seen elsewhere in Europe. The transformation of the children into swans here is also significant, once again for the Christian theme. In Irish tradition, different birds have different religious significance, and blessed souls are said to appear in the form of a swan, and so the depiction here of the Children of Lir as swans suggests that they are innocent souls awaiting salvation, and never were destined for an earthly reward. The final detail to mention is the fate of the Tuatha Dé Danann themselves. While they were said to be enjoying the Feast of the Ages during the second stage of the children's exile, their otherworldly homes were mundane hills when the Children of Lir finally returned, their feasting over, and the Tuatha's glory faded. Perhaps, then, while the Children of Lir endured centuries of suffering, the ultimate fate of the Tuatha was the tragedy, not the children who received salvation. Thank you for listening to this episode of Folklore and Superstition. If you enjoyed it, then please give a like, a comment, a share, a follow, all the things that the algorithm likes. If you're listening on audio platforms, go check out our YouTube channel. And if you're listening on YouTube, then go check out the Mythillogical feed on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, where you can find these episodes. Also, go and check out the Histocrat channel on YouTube, where I and my friend Charles host a Mythological podcast. Next time, we'll be heading to the Isle of Man. We'll see you then.